The big news.
Hello everyone. As you know,
Hello, everyone.
I will not be able to be in Roland Garros. Have been a few very difficult months. I worked super hard every day to try to be ready for the clay, and now this one, the most important one, Roland Garros, the most important tournament of my tennis career.
Yes.
So after that, I decided to make a break. I need to stop for a while, try to recover my body. The last couple of years haven't been easy. Too many problems in terms of injuries.
Too many problems in terms of injuries. What does it all mean? Let's go to the New York Times with Matthew Fudgerman and Christopher O'Clery, the New York Times tennis writers. Rafa Nadal withdraws from the French Open, wants to play one more year. Maybe you didn't see that part. The little bits and pieces of what Rafa has said has been all over the internet out there. So let's dive into this and get down to exactly what we're dealing with. And I'll give it to you right now. Basically, Rafa is announcing he's going to do a farewell tour. Remember when Roger said he didn't want to do a year of going around to all the tournaments knowing that he couldn't really compete to win them, and he's just there to say goodbye on a farewell tour, kind of like Agassi did in 2007. That's basically what Rafa has announced he's going to do. So Nadal, the Spanish star, has battled a core muscle injury since enero. He said, "Come on up, Mr. Goat. Here he is, the talking tennis cat. Check out the window for anything out there, any rodents." Anyways, it's probably going to be my last year in the professional tour is what it says here. Anyways, so let's move on to the next page of this Times article. Rafa Nadal, the 14-time champion, a singles champ, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. Hey, Mr. Goat. Get comfortable, Mr. Goat. We're going to be here for a minute. Nadal, who competed in Paris every year since 2005, and has an astonishing record. Mr. Goat, quite astonishing, right? We're all astonished by this record. Get ready for it. Since 2005, 112 wins on 3 losses for Rafa Nadal at the Roland Garros. Made the announcement in a news conference, blah, 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 in the Spanish island of Mallorca, where he lives. Nadal said he would further extend his break from the game to try to get healthy and then attempt to play the next season. So what has he said? Quote, "Probably is going to be my last year in the professional tour. That's my idea," he said. "Even that, I can't say 100%. So he's not even sure. Rafa's not even sure he can do the farewell tour next year. And it makes sense, folks. We saw Rafa when he won it last year. Remember, he said one of his feet was numb. He had to have an injection to numb his foot. He couldn't feel his foot. He still won the French Open. It looked painful. When he won the Australian Open last, it looked painful at times. I guess no one knew. I have that clip, but I don't have it ready, so maybe we'll do it next time. With the French Open coming up, we're going to do a lot of videos. It's Grand Slam time. That's what we specialize here in at Coffee Break Tennis. Right, Mr. Goat? And anyways, it's sad news, folks. We're lucky, right? We're lucky because there's a Mr. Goat. Mr. Goat's looking at me, reminding me to talk about some things I wanted to talk about today in today's show. We're lucky that things are actually getting very interesting in tennis, even though I haven't made many videos this year. But I've been watching closely as much as I can, and there's a lot of exciting things going on in the sport with some of the younger players. So it is still very interesting to watch, more interesting than ever, you could argue. But we're going to miss these guys, and obviously Roger's gone, and it sounds like Rafa may be gone next. We might not see Rafa compete with a chance to win a tournament ever again. So as he was saying here, and if you don't believe me, that's not my characterization of it. This is what Rafa said. "I can't say 100% it's going to be like this because you never know what is going to happen. But my idea, my motivation is to try to enjoy and try to say goodbye to all the tournaments that have been important to me in my career." His withdrawal from the French Open, which is scheduled to begin on May 28th, was not a surprise. He hasn't played a tournament since suffering an injury to the lower abdomen. The psoas is what it says here later in the article. And the right leg at the Australian Open in January. The reality of the announcement and his approaching absence from the red clay he has ruled for so long jolted the tennis world. Yeah, we had, because, deep down, he's really up in the show today. Deep down, I think it's, you know why Mr. Goat's here? You know why he's here? Because he's sad. Mr. Goat loves these guys and the Joker. Of course, Mr. Goat still has the Joker to root for. We're all sad because we've watched these guys for so long, and now we just had to hear it was real. Rafa had to announce it. I was expecting to see Rafa show up and make some kind of a run, even with no warm-up tournaments on clay. I think we all were thinking, what if he shows up without playing a tournament and somehow wins the thing? That's how good he's been on the clay. I was working as much as possible, said Rafa, every single day for the last 4 months. They've been very difficult months because we were not able to find the solutions to the problem I had in Australia. Today, I am still in that same position where he was in Australia. I'm not able to feel myself ready to compete at the standards I need to play at Roland Garros. Nadal made it clear that he did not want to play the tournament with no realistic chances. Moving on to some more stuff, Nadal said, I don't know when I will be able to come back to the practice court, but I'll stop for a while. Maybe 2 months, maybe 1 month and a half, maybe 3 months, maybe 4. I don't know. I'm not the guy who likes to predict the future. I'm just following my personal feelings and just following what I really believe is the right thing to do for my body and my happiness. The psoas muscle injury is the latest in a string of ailments over the past 18 months. You might remember some of these. Flare-up of a chronic foot injury, as when they had to numb it. A cracked rib, that was Indian Wells when he lost to Taylor Fritz. Geez, you think Rafa wants to come back to the French Open and have a loss like that to some loser? No way. Not going to do it with this injury. Like he did at the Indian Wells. What else? Cracked rib, pulled abdominal muscles, you name it. Rafa's had it all. Of course, the knees in the past too. Nadal turns 37 on June 3rd to miss many of the tournaments that are usually on his schedule, blah, 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 blah. Making matters worse, tennis punishes an activity in a way where it's really hard to come back. They go on to say in this article that Rafa may drop out of the top 100 after all the clay is over. So pretty soon. We're not that far. They go on to talk a little bit about Novak Djokovic. He rejoined the tour in April, aggravated an elbow injury in Monte Carlo and Banja Luka. And then he withdrew from Madrid so he could rest, where he has won 6 times. And, of course, Djokovic just lost in Rome. So just look at this. This tells you how many matches played, the dominance these guys have had in Rome and at the French Open, too. But matches played, Djokovic and Nadal, you might be surprised by this tied. 77 matches played at Rome. You got to win a lot to be able to play that many matches. Of course, when you lose, you leave, and you don't get to play any more matches until next year. Federer, great number there at 50. And then everyone else pretty far away from Nadal and Djokovic, 40s or lower. Stan Demand makes that list. Here's a more obvious way to look at it, though. 18 years in a row, from 2005 to 2022, we've had either Nadal or Djokovic or both in the final. This year, we don't even see them in the semifinals. So there you go. That is the big news of the day in the tennis world. That leaves us wondering, and what we'll talk about in today's show, who's going to be able to take advantage of this? Of course, maybe it's just Djokovic all along, but things don't look great for Djokovic. I know a lot of tennis fans out there are expecting less from him. I think he's still a big-time favorite. I think he's still the number one favorite as long as his body is healthy and Djokovic plans to be healthy. But we're going to all be watching the French Open, very curious. Not sure what to expect, except maybe a big surprise or maybe Djokovic claiming another massive victory and taking the lead, 23 majors over Rafa's 22. Take a look at this. There's another person interested to see what happens at the French Open.
French Open coming up, maybe doubts over Rafa's fitness. Be tough if he's not there.
Yeah. It would be brutal, yes. That would be tough for tennis if Rafa wasn't going to be there. I still hope so. I saw he pulled out of Rome, so I wish him the best. And then obviously Novak also hasn't played that much, so I hope he's going to be strong as well. And then obviously all the young guys coming through as well. I'll be watching, that's for sure.
All these young guys coming through to stop my two rivals from going further ahead of me in the tennis record books. I'll be watching, that's for sure. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis. I'm your host, Matt Bradshaw. Excited to get things going with Grand Slam tennis just around the corner. We are wrapping things up in Rome, and we're here to talk about who can make up for this absence. Joker wasn't ready to win Rome this year, or at least Holger Rune wasn't ready to let him. Babyface Rune. We got to talk about that guy because this is a guy I was mocking the last time we made a show. It's been a while. And then I saw that he made a comment that he sees himself being part of the next big four with Alcaraz, Sinner, and maybe Medvedev was the other name he threw in there. Makes sense if you drop Alcaraz at this tournament. Holger Rune, all of a sudden, this guy looks for real. We got to really take this guy serious. I think he's the kind of guy, the Johnny Mac type, who's kind of crazy and can still focus despite what kind of craziness he has going on around him. He started things off against Fabio Fognini. Take a look at this incredible miss.
Oh my goodness. Why he has tried to hit it that hard, but
I think a little after that or before that, there was one point where Holger Rune, he hit an ace, and the Italian fans there in the Fabio Fognini match, they booed him. I don't know, I've seen that before. If I had, it's probably in Rome. It's so funny. The commentators, they're like, if we're anywhere else in the world, they're like, this is disgraceful. These fans, they don't understand how you're supposed to be in tennis, the etiquette of watching a tennis match. It's a disgrace to the sport. It's not fair to the players. And these fans are just disgraceful and distasteful and all the rest. But when you're in Italy, the commentators say something different. I wish I had the clip for you, but I heard a commentator saying, this is a unique challenge for the players to be able to play in such an environment when they're up against an Italian player, especially a unique challenge for them to work on their skills of focusing and tuning things out going on around them. Totally different. We always make excuses for the barbaric Italian tennis fans out there. Anyways, the person who was supposed to come through this thing, right, with Rafa not there, person who's supposed to win the French with Joker not 100%, we'll see. We'll see which Joker shows up in the second week of Roland Garros. I think he might be 100. He might be 110% and win the whole thing. But it was supposed to be Alcaraz, right? Holger Rune. I think, give this guy credit. I think he's got a shot to win the French Open, actually. I can't believe I'm saying that. I wouldn't have said that months ago. When he won Paris last year, it was very impressive. He beat Alcaraz, he beat Djokovic, beat all kinds of great players along the way. But, it could be a fluke. Didn't Jack Sock win that tournament once and then go on to have his career was over after that? Or something, it was like the curse. Anyways, Holger Rune, I'm going to give him a chance now. I think he's for real, and I didn't expect it. I didn't want him to be. I thought he was kind of annoying, but I thought the same thing about a young Andy Murray, whiny and annoying, but goes on to have a legendary career in the shadow of the big three, or emerges from the shadow of the big three. Anyways, Alcaraz, let's look. This guy lost to a Hungarian, Maroshan. I can't even remember how to say his name. I'd never even heard of the guy before. And just look at these stats. Alcaraz wins in the first set. Second serve points, 0%. Gets 80%. There's a thing. I saw it with Alcaraz earlier in the year, actually. Now, he's had a great winning streak. Maybe he's a little tired from winning so much. We see it with Rafa every clay season. Alcaraz is still a favorite to win the French Open. But he hasn't done it yet. And we get the Joker there. So that's why we watch the matches. We shall see. So I'll give a little bit of an excuse. Alcaraz, very graceful, like Nadal in the press conference, saying it wasn't anything. He's not tired. He's not fatigued. Just his opponent played a great match, and that's that. But I think it is fair to say Alcaraz definitely wasn't at his best. I was going to say earlier in the year, I saw sometimes, and by the way, that number there, average speed on the forehand, was considerably higher for Alcaraz. By the end of the match, if you look at the whole match stats, that number goes down, and Maroshan, however you say, let's call him Fabian, he's out-hitting Alcaraz on the forehand speed and the backhand, as you can see in that first set. So really outplayed Alcaraz and did it in a way that, if you didn't watch the match, would surprise you and many other tennis fans. Oh, but I meant to mention, earlier in the year, I saw Alcaraz getting a lot of first, you see that number, 80% first serves in. Now he's winning a lot of first serve points, so clearly that's great. But 0 on the second serve definitely didn't help. There is such a thing as hitting too many first serves in. I've said this before in the show and seen comments over the years where people are very confused by that. Mr. Goat's here to explain it, because it's not that confusing after all. In a nutshell, you don't want to have your serve percentage, your first serve, much over like 60, 65%, because if you're hitting in, 80% like you see here, you're usually not winning that many. They're not quality first serves. This isn't a great example because he's winning 75%. But look at Fabian. He's getting 68% in. Closer to that, I always say the magic number is 61%. That's when Federer would always be at his best, getting 61% in. But he wins almost 90% on the first serve. So if you're getting about 60-ish% in and you're hitting your spots, you're going to win 80% plus of the first serve points. Anyways, like I said, obviously not that big of a factor there for Alcaraz, but I saw it earlier in the year. I don't have it for you, but there was a stat where I'm pretty sure it was Alcaraz hitting a ton of first serves in, but not winning a high enough percentage on the. If you're winning 50% of your first serves and hitting 100% in, it's really not such a great deal. Anyways, other stats there. 13 winners on 4 unforced errors from Fabian. And let's show you what these winners look like. Well, first, look at this. I don't have the other side of the court for Alcaraz, but it was the opposite. Fabian hits a pretty flat ball. You think flat on clay? This year, Rome is very different. They always say that Rome is the most like the French Open. Well, not this year. This is more like the winter French Open from the COVID. When the ball flat ball is actually pretty good compared to a spinny ball when you're playing in the conditions that we've had in Rome this year, which are very rare. They asked Djokovic about it. I wish I had that clip for you. Some really dumb questions they asked him. One was, Novak, do you still consider yourself, give yourself a chance to win the French Open? And he's like, yes. And then he made like a face at somebody in the background, like, he asked a stupid question. What do you expect? That's all he gets. Next question, please. And then another question. Oh, God, I lost my train of thought. What was the other question? It had to do with, they asked him, I can't remember exactly what he said, but what the question was, but Djokovic said these conditions. Oh, they asked Djokovic. I got it now. They asked Djokovic. Sorry, folks. I haven't done a show in a while. I'm a little rusty. They asked Djokovic, should it be mandatory? Should it be required that they build a roof here at Rome? And Djokovic kind of laughed. Another dumb question. Like, do you know how much it costs to build a roof at a tournament? And since I lost in bad conditions when it's very rainy and slow courts because of this, you're asking me to say there should be a rule that makes me look pretty bad. Djokovic is, I imagine, is what he was thinking. But anyways, these conditions extremely slow. So this is not the best example of what things will play like in France. It probably won't be like this. And as Djokovic said, this is very unusual. We don't really need a roof here because we've never had a year like this before where it rains so much almost every day of the tournament. Anyways, back to Alcaraz and Marochan. The spinny ball not working as well in slower conditions, and thumping it flat, that always works, especially in slower conditions. So Marochan was able to hit a flat ball and take it very early. That was the key of what he did to Alcaraz. Alcaraz was always pushed back because of this. You can see in his numbers, see that 4 in red, that's the danger zone where you don't want to be on any tennis court. Alcaraz's number was like 42 back there, something ridiculous. So let's show you what he did. What happens when you step in early and hit the ball deep and fast and flat and your opponent gets pushed back? There's opportunity for a drop shot. What if it happens that you're playing the best drop shot player in the world, Alcaraz? Well, it turns out this guy, Fabian, his favorite shot is the drop shot.
In under an hour in that final.
Big forehand. He's back. And then on the opposite side, right?
Wow.
Push him to the right side of the court and then drop him on the left. Same thing. He's got him way back in the left side of the court, drop him on the right. Big serving also from Fabian. Goes right to the drop shot immediately and handles it well at net. Covers the line and goes up the line back. I mean, these drop shots, we know how fast Alcaraz is. Clearly, these drop shots are amazing. Now, will Fabian do this again? Will he ever play this good again for the rest of his life? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing about Fabian. Rafa Nadal is my idol. I'm just trying to play against him maybe one day. That's the goal. He's a big fighter. I think part of how Fabian won is there's no expectations for him to win. So it's very easy to play like you're very mentally tough in a match like this and feel no pressure whatsoever. Anyways, look at Alcaraz. You could argue he's tired. Quite a win streak that he racked up here. Bottom line for Alcaraz, he's still going to be a favorite going into the French. Players outside top 100 to beat top 2 opponents since 2015. This is a rare occasion. Marochan, obviously, 135 in the world, defeats number 2. Yuri Vesely beat Djokovic in Dubai. That's after Djokovic got deported. Not quite the same. Schagenbach, Van Rijthoven took Medvedev out. That's kind of a weird surface out there. And the guy just played amazing, felt no pressure, ranked 205 in the world. Kokinakis taking out Fed in Miami 2018. I remember that. I went there. I had tickets. I was expecting to see Fed play. Very upset when that didn't happen thanks to the Cocky. Indian Wells, Popsicle takes down Murray. Montreal, Chapeau took down Nadal. Remember that, 2017. Istomin taking out Djokovic in 2017. Not a healthy Djokovic. Rio Del Potro taking out Djokovic in 2016. I remember exactly where I was in some of these matches. I think I was in Cincinnati for that one. Anyways, I can kind of make excuses for like why all these wins happened. Not so much with this one, other than maybe Alcaraz was just tired. All right, well, moving on. Who's the other player who's supposed to take advantage of Nadal not being the king of clay this year? Djokovic. Here's a flattering picture of Djokovic's rear side. This is from the first match, I think. Djokovic goes back behind the speed gun sign, and he throws up. So Djokovic came into this thing not feeling well. I know he'd been taking some medicine in some of the matches for his stomach. I think including in his loss to Rune, he had to get it. This is 4-1 down in the first set against Holger Rune, babyface Rune. And obviously, you can see Djokovic's speeds dropped considerably, double digits down in the kilometers per hour on the forehand strike. Djokovic didn't make excuses either. He's back to his normal thing. He doesn't have, we saw earlier in the clay court season, he's got like a elbow brace on. Didn't have that at least, or maybe he's covering it up with the white sleeves there. More stats from this match. Just Rune playing really clean. I have some stats that I didn't put in the show today on purpose because I don't quite know. It's something new I've seen with Tennis TV where they're rating the effectiveness of your forehand or your backhand or your return or your serve. And Holger Rune isn't really dominating in any of those numbers. I mean, he is. He's top 5 in all of them or something like that. But he's not at number 1. I saw Casper Ruud's number 1 in forehands and backhand effectiveness. I'm not sure how they measure these numbers. So I don't know how real these numbers really are. It always comes down to mental for me. That seems to be more important. And I think Holger Rune mentally is looking as tough as any of these young guys that we've ever seen, since the Big Three dominance era. When we see these young guys come up, I think maybe they'll be the ones to break through and dominate the sport as well, Big Three style. Holger Rune is looking very mentally tough, even though it's weird to say. That's what I'm saying. Maybe he's kind of like a John McEnroe type guy. I think it might be possible. He can go nuts, he can have all this drama going on around him, and he can still focus and be very mentally tough and win the big points. Anyway, so just playing very consistent in this match against Djokovic. Djokovic said, he reminds me of myself after the loss, saying, he's very fit, he's very fast, he gets to everything. And Djokovic, he likes what he sees in a player like that, says he gets along well with him. Serve numbers, Djokovic, this is where you can see. He's getting 61 magic number first serves in for the Joker. Holger Rune, I almost said Casper Rune, 30% first serves in. Didn't matter. Look at those big winning numbers off the first and second for Holger. And look at the very bad numbers from Djokovic. That can reflect how poorly Djokovic was returning in that set, especially the first set, and how well Holger Rune is returning serve. Anyways, let's move on from that. Djokovic, I remember he didn't look all that great playing in Serbia. Before he won the last time he won the French Open, whenever that was. And he didn't look a couple years ago. He didn't beat Tsitsipas in the final, remember? And down 2 sets, all that stuff. And also, who else did he beat? Musetti, too. Anyways, down 2 sets. So Djokovic, I just see it like that. Rome, Serbia, it doesn't matter. He's just getting his reps in on clay. The only thing that matters to the Joker is the French Open. And like that reporter said, do you still consider yourself a contender for the French Open this year? Yes, that's that. We'll see how he looks. Couple matches, best of 5 sets. Djokovic is going to have plenty of time to work himself in, although these guys are getting better. So let's look at who has been doing well this year. And there's this guy that we shouldn't be talking about during the clay season, and that's Danny Medvedev. Medvedev, Alcaraz, Sinner. Let's just skip over Fritz. Go to number 10, Djokovic. These are the real winners of the year because look at that number next to it. Djokovic doesn't play as many tournaments as the rest of these guys. Otherwise, he'd have way more wins. He's only got 3 losses. I guess 4 since updating this. I'm not sure when I took this screenshot. Sometime during Rome. Medvedev's added to the wins total there. Of course, Djokovic, 7 of those wins are the most important wins of the whole year because all that really matters are the majors in the grand scheme of things. Medvedev, 5 losses, very comparable to the 3. Obviously, Alcaraz right there with 3. Sinner pretty close, 6. Everyone else is double digits or close to it. Tsitsipas will give him an honorable mention with TFO, 7 losses. I'm not going to say anything nice about Scam Nori. And Holger Rune, he's right there, even though 9 losses. It's a lot more than the 3 and the 5 and the 6 from Jannik Sinner even. But an impressive numbers of wins there, 24 from Tsitsipas and Rune, 25 from Rublev. I guess we'd give Nori some credit there with 25 wins. Maybe not as big a tournaments. Let's listen. Why is Medvedev winning here? Let's listen to what Medvedev's doing different. What are you doing different?
Moving, because every time I step out on clay, first 2-3 weeks to move is really tough for me. To slide, I slide 10 times better on hard courts because it's actually so much easier to stop on hard courts after you start to slide because so much more grip. And on clay, when I go out on clay,
so he's saying, we stop it there. He's saying when he goes onto the clay, it's hard to control coming out of the slide. On a hard court, you go into the slide, you hit the ball, and you stop pretty quick. Medvedev may be the best in the world at this right now. Take a look. Oh, the Joker, too. Got to mention his hard court sliding ability. He kind of invented it. I love this clip.
the whole match.
So here's an example of Medvedev moving on the clay now. Here's the important part. Sliding out to the backhand. Notice how he stops, bounces, and gets back in time for a good drop shot.
That is outrageous.
It is outrageous. But, he's beaten some guys you haven't heard of maybe. Then he goes up against Zverev. I know Zverev is not the normal Zverev. We saw in Madrid he was playing well, and then he got thumped by Alcaraz, just like last time they played there. But look at these numbers. I mean, Zverev played pretty well, especially in the second half of the match. Zverev has been getting better. I thought he might be able to take Medvedev out here. This would be a real test for Medvedev on the clay. And the key is the movement for Medvedev's game. He said he's getting better at movement on clay. That's really all he needs to do well here. Yeah, his ball's not going to jump. Maybe the rainy conditions is helping him because it's a deader court, so his flat ball is actually staying really low here, and he's not getting the high ball as much from other opponents. But also he's tall too, so sometimes these tall guys like the clay. Maybe the height of the ball doesn't matter too much. The only thing I would say is maybe it makes his ball sit up a little bit, which could be damaging, devastating, whatever. But look at these numbers. Even though Zverev hit a ton of winners, drew so many unforced errors out of him, and look at what Medvedev does on the return. I think Medvedev is playing like Joker with the bigger serve here, which is what he's done on hard courts and why he's been so successful. If he can pull it off on clay, it sounds ridiculous to say Medvedev could win the French Open, but who knows with no Rafa there, and we don't know exactly what to expect from Djokovic. Well, I take it back. We know exactly what to expect from Djokovic, but we don't know if he's running out of time. Maybe the body won't cooperate. Numbers here, 30% on second serve from Zverev. That's the Medvedev effect, and that's 69% on the first serve. That would be higher if he wasn't playing such a great returner like Medvedev. Medvedev plays tomorrow. Steph Tsitsipas. That'll be a bigger test. Tsitsipas has been good here, but first let's just look at these numbers. 48%, not enough first serves in, but this is an example of making the most of your first serves, winning 90% against Borna Coric, who has a great return. Also returning well enough to keep the Borna Coric numbers down. This is what Tsitsipas has been doing all tournament long. Give this guy a chance to win the French Open also. He's been close in the past. I think he's been mentally weak because he's been burned from so many tough losses. But maybe he's going to be ready to do it this time. Look at these numbers on serve. If he can serve like this, he'll have a shot. They're not quite Fed numbers, but you see the 45% in the white square and the 32. That's like the zone where it's easier to hit the ball. When you hit with the kind of speed that Tsitsipas can hit on a first serve into these corners, into the blue area on the outside, which Federer has done so well throughout his career, which Djokovic has done so well in more recent years when he's been more dominant. Do the math, 55% of the time in there, and almost 70% of the time in the deuce court in there, ad court and deuce court coming from Tsitsipas. You see the aces are the ones closest to the lines, and all those other balls there, they set up his forehand, what Rafa does so well on the clay, and Tsitsipas's forehand has been great. This is always a weakness for Tsitsipas, especially on faster courts. If you can get to his backhand enough, look at the returns made, over 80% on the forehand side, 66, it's a big drop. So look for tomorrow to see Medvedev serving to that backhand, working in his slice to keep him off balance on the deuce court on the serve. Also, Medvedev does that a lot, but I think he's going to maybe go a little bit more up the tee to take advantage of this number. Surely the coaches are talking about that. I saw this, and I know some people are like, Matt, what are you, not a real Federer, Nadal fan? You seem to like Djokovic too much. This captures why I've become a bigger and bigger Djokovic fan. I've always respected and appreciated the guy, but I'm a big fan now. And Jimmy Connors, apparently Jimmy Connors has a podcast. I didn't know that. This is what he said on his podcast. This is from tennisinfinity.com. Djokovic has been screwed over from extending his legacy, believes Jimmy Connors. Former superstar, number one, Grand Slam champion Jimmy Connors, former player is what they say here, believes that Novak Djokovic has been prevented from extending his legacy in the past couple of years. The last few years have been quite tumultuous for Novak Djokovic. He saw quite a few things happen to him. From the disqualification at the U.S. Open to the deportation from Australia on top of all the vaccination talks. Forget the disqualification. Yeah, that's rough. Djokovic probably regrets that, but at least you can blame him for that. I guess you can blame him for not getting vaccinated before the Australian Open, but the fact that he wasn't allowed to enter the U.S. for all this time was ridiculous, especially when he could go to Australia. I think just adding to his weeks at number 1 has been severely hurt. I think he should be considered the number 1 still, no matter what happens with the rankings. Same with all of last year. Here's what Jimmy Connors said. I'm rooting for Joker, and here's why. I think he's been screwed the last couple of years big time. I'm rooting for him to come through. He's already proven what he is. He's got 22 Grand Slams. He's already proven how great he is and all that, but he has been kept from even extending that legacy. All right, that's enough from the laptop. Hit the music. I got to get out of here, but if you've been wondering, Matt, why are you such a big fan? Why are you such a big fan? Sorry, Mr. Goat. Why are you such a big fan of the Joker? You okay? That's why. I agree with Jimmy Connors. He worded that perfectly. Sorry, Mr. Goat. He worded that perfectly for me. So if you're understanding why I've been so much of a Joker fan, I think it's outrageous what they've done to the guy. And of course, I'm hoping that he wins the French Open. We'll be back after we see which guy comes out on top. Very exciting tomorrow. All Scandinavian semifinal. And of course, Medvedev, the new clay maestro. How will he face against one of our old clay maestros from the next gen tomorrow? We'll be back to wrap it all up next week and look forwards to the Roland Garros, the first without Rafa Nadal in a long, long time. See you!